if your deck does have, for instance, maybe you play Slam in your deck, which gives your deck a little bit more card draw, you're going to lose a fatigue game. You're just going to lose a fatigue game unless something very strange happens, so you have to play aggressively. Both these players' decks have actually looked quite similar, though. We've seen both players with Bash in their deck, both players with Brawl. I don't know that Trump has 2 Brawls. I believe we've seen 1 from him.
I think he had 1, and did he have a Geddon?
He did have a
Geddon.
He does have Baron Geddon.
He also have a Ysera, and that's a really big card that can go unanswered if you don't have Executes or Shield Slams remaining because you're just busy removing everything else. That could be problematic. However, I do want to highlight that I think that one of the most important things is not about how the big bombs line up just by themselves, but how do you use mid-sized minions like a Sludge Belcher really effectively so that you annoy your opponents enough that they have to use removal inefficiently?
Trump with the better weapons here.
Yeah, 2 Death Bites beats a pair of Fire War Axes, both in card games and Hearthstone. Pair of 4s or better pair of pairs.
It's true. Yeah. And Trump here, he's respecting the possibility of Fire War Axe and wants to get more than 1 card off of Acolyte of Pain. So what it looks like he's doing is choosing to wait on Deathspite. So he wants to attack with Deathspite and then play his Acolyte of Pain, so he'll be able to get the Death Rattle effect and get 2 cards off of his Acolyte, guaranteed.
Absolutely. Sometimes you see in this matchup too, Deathspite just be queued up and then attack the face because you're just anticipating what your opponent will be playing next. If you know he's going to play either Sludge Belcher or Emperor Thorson, you want to get ahead of it.
Right. And I'm actually a little bit surprised to not see that from Trump. He has 2 Deathspites. He's choosing just to armor up. Rather than attacking Coreia's face.
Probably worried about the coin Harrison Jones.
Sure. I mean, but he's going to need to potentially deploy those at some point. And here, Coreia is getting the Acolyte down, and he is using immediately his coin and Cruel Taskmaster to ensure that he too will get multiple cards off of his Acolyte.
Right, and this is because he has Sludge Belchers already, so he knows that he can protect this, and he wants to load up some power onto the board, and so Coreia immediately is saying, I'm going to play this more aggressive. A lot of players, when they have the coin in a control mirror, is thinking, I want to be able to leverage my coin to be able to get my threat out first if it's a really big bomb, like Emperor Thorson or Dr. Boom. But in this case, Coreia says, I'm just going to take a more aggressive stance in general because I have Sludge Belchers, I have more minions to follow it up. Hopefully I can take an aggressive stance.
Yeah, now we're going to see likely that Sludge Belcher come down, though Trump does already have the Deathspite queued up to contest it as well. No, not a Sludge Belcher.
I don't think he played the Belcher. It's just the Deathspite is too perfect to deal with.
Sure.
But eventually he will have to fit something into it, whether it be Shield Maiden or something. A lot of things are 5 toughness.
Yeah, so, disruption plays are also perfectly viable, too, because you just want to make your opponent play very inefficiently, like we said.
And that Slam draw from Trump is interesting. I actually had not seen him pick up Slam in previous games, and we were just talking about how the presence of cards like Slam does mean that maybe you need to play the matchup a little bit differently because you're drawing extra cards. You're more likely to go to Fatigue if you have that card instead of a solid threat.
It does. It's so interesting, though, because Trump also feels like he top-ends very heavily with Ysera, because I don't really remember Coreia playing a Ysera.
I've not seen Ysera out of Coreia's deck just yet.
Therefore, he might opt to just be more defensive by then.
He wants to ensure that he's getting the extra card off of Acolyte. It does mean that his opponent is able to kill his Acolyte and potentially play something like a Sludge Belcher with no fear of it dying next turn.
Yep, Coreia really happy to see that Deathspite being used.
Right, because now Sludge Belcher is much stronger in this position. And he's got a clear board. I mean, he can kill off that Acolyte.
And he could burn a card from Trump by using the Cruel Taskmaster before using the Fire War Axe, but it doesn't seem worth it.
You can't develop the Sludge Belcher either by doing that.
Burning your opponent's cards is something that a lot of players just get really excited by, but is very rarely going to be the best play. If your opponent is going to get value off of their card draw otherwise, or maybe they're playing a very combo-intensive deck.
He's thought about it. He thought about it. I mean, if he does and he burns a really powerful minion.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how there are individual key cards like Ysera that could possibly force Trump to burn here.
I mean, Armor Smith's a card that Trump doesn't want to necessarily have. I mean, he could be okay with burning it.
All right.
Uh-oh. I'm feeling a big minion might be coming out. Trump's praying.
Please not.
Orange Jesus, don't fail me now.
Okay,
that's fine.
A bash the card you don't even particularly want to draw.
Yep, Trump definitely happy to see that one over something like a big minion. And
here comes Dr. Boom.
Yeah, Dr. Boom can be dealt with relatively easily here.
Ooh, that's actually interesting from the Sylvanas here.
Yes.
He does not have a great use for it right now. There are the 2 Boombots in play. You could just steal that Sylvanas with Shield Slam is a pretty powerful way to, if he does run into something like the Ysera that would be difficult to deal with, he can potentially steal it and actually put Trump in the back foot. But he does choose to just armor up, Shield Slam.
I like holding on to Sylvanas.
Yeah, for sure. I was just excited because it's a neat play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Not that I thought they would do it now.
I mean, you also have Sylvanas, and you have 2 brawls, so you do have the opportunity to set up a scenario where Sylvanas might just win the brawl no matter what by placing the board as brawl.
And I don't know that we saw Emperor Thorison from Corea's deck. We saw. Ooh, speaking of Ysera.
Oh, yeah, Ysera coming into the hand. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, the fact is he can't play in a single turn, but we'll see how that ends up transpiring.
So Ysera is a very powerful card in these longer control style matchups because every turn you do get a dream card added to your hand. It can give you the tools to win game to go to fatigue and attrition.
Right.
It can potentially give you several relatively powerful minions as well as a number of extremely efficient zero-cost spells.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, almost every card from Ysera is very valuable in a control warrior mirror because every minion that comes out is another threat that they have to deal with. The worst is a Laughing Sister for 3 and 5, but you can't remove it easily.
And there's a second slam from Trump, so he's definitely going to have to be in a position, I believe, to approach this game aggressively. It's going to be difficult, I think, for him to win from an attrition standpoint if he is drawing, or rather fatigue standpoint, if he is drawing multiple additional cards with Slam.
Sure.
And Coreia did speed up the fatigue anyway for Trump. He does still have plenty of cards remaining in his deck, so that's not something that's going to happen.
It is the sort of thing that if you're in that seat, you need to be thinking about early. You need to be thinking about how you're going to approach this game and what your win condition is going to be. And if you're trying to win a fatigue-based game, but your deck has multiple cards that draw additional cards rather than serve as individual threats, you're at a disadvantage from the beginning.
Oh yeah. Going for the slam here, probably going to follow it up with a Death Spite.
Right, something considers that his opponent has that Harrison Jones, might be able to shut it down for the last time, and there'll be no more Death Spite following afterwards. But what's good is that the Sludge Belcher still is saved from the Fiery War Axe, and he does get to develop the Death Spite.
Just goes with armor up.
This, let's see, kind of like want to see if it lines up with Baron Geddon, because again, it's one of those things where you want to use these legendary minions very efficiently.
And we see Coreia pick up Alex Straza. That is one of the key cards to sort of closing out the game from a non-fatigue attrition perspective.
Right.
Alex Strazing your opponent to reduce in the 15, and then the burst kill with Gamache and Death Spite or Taskmasters to enable it is one of the ways you can close out the game, even if your opponent has a lot of resources to potentially kill things you'd be able to play on their own turn.
I mean, don't be deceived. Even though this has been relatively slow paced, this is a relatively aggressive warrior versus warrior. Neither of them have over 10 armor, because what usually does kind of happening is like you have removal pieces. No matter what you play, your opponent kills it, whether through spells or big game hunter, and then you just have 50 health and one player has like 35 health, and it just becomes excessively defensive if one player fails to be aggressive.
It is important to note, though, that Alex Straza does not affect armor. Alex Straza only reduces the player's health to 15, so if you do have, say, 30 armor, you'll actually still have a huge padding against that possible burst kill.
Absolutely.
For a fun fact, they used to do that.
It did.
They used to shred all the armor.
So much removal in both players' hands. Coreia with 1 Shield Slam and 2 executes. Trump with 2 Shield Slam and 2 executes.
And here, Sylvanas is a card that is interesting because it can potentially force Trump to use his threats that he currently has on board inefficiently. Like right now, it actually contests very well. Trump can't even just attack both of his minions into Sylvanas to remove it, in which case he'd have to then still use some additional resource to get rid of it. He could use that slam and then leave Coreia with just the ooze from Sludge Belcher if he attacks both his minions into it, which might be his best way to sort of get around the minion steal effect from Sylvanas.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
It's not exciting by any means.
No, not
but
exciting. And what can he do afterwards? He could play the Acolyte, he could play the Chrome, but the Chrome is not going to get played this early. There's no way.
I mean, I feel like Trump has been trying to avoid drawing unnecessarily. He's held on to shield block for many turns, and so he might even opt to use Slam as a finishing card.
Yeah, that's also possible.
Yeah, he could do that.
As like, I don't want to draw cards anymore because I recognize that I've been really far ahead of my opponent.
I mean, we can even see just by the size of the graphics on the screen that Trump actually has has significantly fewer cards left in his deck than Coreia does.
Yeah, I think it could be just the adjustment of Hearthstone physics, where something kind of like shakes a little bit and you're adjusted to it. But he does end up going with the shield block, picking up Fire War Axe. Not in fact the most useful card either, especially now that he's used Slam too.
Ooh,
Harrison Jones.
And this is Trump's second Death Spite, so it's a key enabler for Gramash in terms of his ability to get it enraged on his own turn.
It seems like an obvious play. We haven't seen a Gore Howl from Trump, so Harrison Jones destroying the opponent's weapons. In this matchup, Death Spite is the weapon that you do want to destroy. You quite often, even if you have an opportunity to use it on a Fiery War Axe, you probably don't take it because the Death Spite is so much more powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not necessarily just like what it chains into, but it's the fact that if Death Spite can remove a minion very effectively, then that means he has a clear board to play his own threat. So you just want to remove this 5 damage that will be coming out onto the board. Draws his own Bash, which is perfectly fine. I mean, Bash is a pretty decent removal piece. I wouldn't even mind if he dropped Sludge Belcher, just starting to be a little bit more aggressive. Now that he has Alexstrasza in hand, he could be just starting to try to push for a win of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, with Alexstrasza in your hand, playing the Alexstrasza when you do have a board of significant number of minions can really put your opponent under a ton of pressure because you reduce their health to 15 and then attack them.
Yeah, I mean, he has weapons. He had Baron Geddon as well, but I can understand it. It's not a sprint sometimes in this matchup. It's definitely a marathon. Not to mention this entire series has also been a long battle back and forth here, so definitely doesn't want to misstep. Instead, chooses the armor up.
I think Coreia recognizes that he's very far ahead in the axis of fatigue. He's really, left Trump really far behind in terms of his ability to deal with that sort of attrition style of game. And if he does just force Trump to deal with these minions one by one, not giving him the opportunity to ever get real value out of a brawl, I think that he is confident in his ability to win that long game.
That 1-1 slime so annoying for Trump right now. He would love to fire a War Axe down to Harrison Jones, but he has to get through the phone. And he doesn't want to execute it.
No, it doesn't feel worth it at all. Instead, he plays Ysera, and I guess he's just going to try to pick up a card that has a high impact. Anything from even, just having the Emerald Drake to Ysera Awakens. Anything would be useful.
He has to know that Ysera's going to die. Yeah, his opponent has been sitting there with a lot of removal in his hand, a lot of cards in his hand for forever. So clearly not going to survive, but still able to get at least one of those removal spells out of his opponent's hand and get him some sort of resource.
Dream is probably the weakest out of all of the Emerald, all the Dream cards, because
for this matchup,
matchup specifically, you just kind of want to have things that can just impact the board and have value. Dream is more of like you can grow Mosh and dream it back. Like that's about it. Or you can try to get tempo by sending back a Baron Geddon.
With the Battlecry minions, it can be really valuable sometimes. Or if the hand is going to be full from your opponent, you might be able to burn a card at times. But right now, Dream not really doing anything.
And now Trump really is starting to feel like he's behind. He has not only less life than his opponent does, but he's kind of behind on board. Doesn't have great ways to deal with Coreia's threats. He'd much rather be able to use, say, weapons to be able to kill a Shield Maiden rather than having to use something like Shield Slam, which is able to kill any minion in his opponent's deck. But because he's under pressure, he has to use the Shield Slam because otherwise he's going to start losing his armor and won't be able to use Shield Slam at a later point.
Sure. One thing to consider too is that Coreia chose to use his Shield Slams over executes and whatnot because he really wants to keep that slime and make it problematic for his opponent. Now that his opponent has such a hard time dealing with a 1-1, maybe this provokes Coreia to just, again, play Sludge Belcher, take it slow. He used 2 slams, he used a bash. Like, there's no way that he can really usually efficiently remove it easily, lest he knows that his opponent also drew a bash.
Yeah, Coreia doesn't really have to do much here. He doesn't need to play his strongest minion. He could just go with something like a Belcher or maybe even the Justicar.
Oh, he's choosing to be aggressive now.
Wow.
Getcha.
I'm actually a little bit surprised by this, but it's completely fine.
It's fine, although it doesn't really do too much because it just gets completely followed up here. Shield Maiden, armor up, Shield Slam is perfectly fine. And it now is one of those things where I wonder if the game goes on long enough where the players start forgetting what actually your opponents have, because they've seen multiple games of Warrior, and as a result, memory starts to blend. You start forgetting does he still have a Shield Slam? Does he still have these types of removals that I have to be careful of?
Especially how many executes there are left, how much removal there is. That's really important. Well, you need to not only track your own executes, but your opponents as well.
What now?
By the way, side note, somewhat humorous that Trump got Alexstrasza and went right back up to 30. This is kind of what just control Warrior things, right?
Yeah.
That's just what they do. Coreia here, he does have ways to remove the Shield Maiden. The problem with Sludge Belcher now is that it gets contested. In fact, almost everything gets contested just 1-for-1 by Shield Maiden.
Right.
And so in a situation now, all of a sudden, Coreia is the one that's like losing value, and then Trump can build on that tempo.
Going for the bash get deals very cleanly that 5 damage, and he gets a good minion on the board.
So yeah, this is something that Trump will also have to react to. We have not seen, I believe, Big Game Hunter yet from Trump. And this is one of the
no,
minions.
we have not.
This is one of the minions that you'd be very happy to Big Game Hunter.
Yeah.
But right now, Trump doesn't really have a particularly great way to deal with it.
The bash and the Fiery War Axe is somewhat decent.
Yeah, so this is, in this control matchup, there are a lot of big minions like Barry Geddenar. This is
Interesting.
that's actually really interesting. He can attack and just play his own Barry Geddenar.
Yeah.
Does take 7 damage to the face, putting him down to 26.
Uh-oh, 26. Not really anything worth that. You know, being able to be very efficient with your minions is the key here. Dr. Boom comes in the hand, a very good card, generally speaking, but he can't activate Execute. And this is one of the challenges of when you keep Executes, you definitely need to ways to continue to activate it. Otherwise, they just sit dead versus the Shield Slam. You need the armor, which generally you may or may not have. So this is something that he wishes he had Shield Slam as opposed to Execute.
Yeah, he has the Death Spite for later on, so he will be able to enable to execute with the Death Rattle once he uses the Death Spite for attacking second time. But right now, what's the easiest way to kill it? Does it have to be the Death Spite into the bash?
Death Spite and Bash does remove it, but you float some mana by doing so. Discard True Heart, have it challenge 1-for-1.
Okay. Smart with their first using their old hero power, then playing the Chastigar to be able to also tank up, yeah.
Alright, Big Game Hunter comes in the hand, that's pretty useful as well. Trump, evaluating what he can do. He has Fiery War Axe to kill off this Justicar True Heart.
Yep, we were talking about the Dream card, how it might not be very good in this matchup, but in combination with the Big Game Hunter, it can actually be huge.
Oh, you're right. That's so powerful.
Oh, he's a little bit worried about his life total, it seems, since he didn't want to use the Fiery War Axe here.
Yeah, I think also Fiery War Axe is more, like, that's more mana efficient to use Bash. I mean, Bash does remove a minion. You don't have any more Shield Slams, so it's not like you have to use that very conservatively to budget your removals. And Fiery War Axe can fit in with Gromosh if he wants to do some kind of scenario where he just bursts for a little bit more. So with the Grom coming into hand, this is something to consider. As the Warrior games draw to a close, we're about the 1/10th waypoint. I mean, this game could hypothetically last for 90 more minutes, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. But the Gromoshes are ultimately the final say. They do sometimes become the last minion, where they come out and whoever has the Gromosh with the last executes end up doing the final points of damage, and then it's literally armor up with no cards in hand, and everyone's just taking fatigue damage, and whoever just dies first. That's sometimes how this matchup goes, which seems to be the trend.
Yep.
And if it does go that way, Coreia is far ahead, because not only does he have the lead in life,
Right.
but also a significant lead, I believe, in card left in his deck
And
because of those
he does
slams.
have 2 brawls. Although one thing that Trump is aware of, because there is the possibility of 2 brawls, he might just be playing one big threat at a time and just never making brawl relevant.
Right.
So sometimes brawl is the last card you're holding on. There's no way you can play it.
Coreia taking it really slow here, not too worried about the Geron. The Geron's ability will clear the slime quite easily. But it will be down to 2 HP, so he can remove it next turn with,
With Bash.
with pretty much anything
Or
that he wants
Execute.
to. Yeah. Only
Probably
Dr. Boom
Bash.
would not kill it.
Literally every other card in his hand can kill it.
And now cards like Acolyte continue to be a liability. Trump's now dug through a few more cards in his deck. He's probably down to around 7 or 8 cards by now, and Coreia seems to still be upwards to 11 plus here. But that's because Coreia hasn't really hit his Acolytes outside the first one. We have yet to see Coreia also get some cycle cards in his deck that also give him some power to dig through.
Trump might consider dreaming the Geron here to deal it back up and then just play it again. But with the Big Game Hunter in his hand, I think he's more likely to save the dream for the PGH.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the surprise value, especially considering that he's going to save his Fiery War Axe here, just equip it. Knows that Harrison Jones has been used already. There's one of those cycle cards we were mentioning from Coreia, so inevitably he has to decide whether or not he wants to cycle through after Dr. Boom does get dealt with here.
Dash boom. Fine turn.
All right. And, that's pretty reasonable. Drawing a Sludge Belcher here, Being able to use Big Game Hunter, Dream It Back, and Sludge Belcher to challenge 1-1, that's a pretty good turn here for Trump, relatively speaking.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Really,
He's down to 4 cards, even more aggressive with the draws that we anticipated here.
I don't think he's gonna play the Armor Smith here because he knows that Coreia runs double brawl.
Right. And he looks like
Is
he's
he not
choosing
dreaming?
not to dream that back.
Okay.
So he's dealt with Dr. Boom, Baron Geddon, Alex Strauza. What else is there really to Big Game Hunter outside of the Grom? Not very many minions.
Not very many.
believe
Is
it's
there
just Grom,
anything?
yeah.
Because he has an
Grom.
execute for the final Grom anyways.
That
so
is true.
in Trump's mind, maybe he saves his dream for an opportunity for Gromosh as removal.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
you just dream Grom
That's a
back.
possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, Grom is basically like a very expensive bash in a
It's
way.
also possible that you need to dream some. I guess we've actually seen both of Coreia's Sludge
Yes.
Belchers, so we're not going to really see like dreaming through a taunt,
Sure.
but potentially just using his dream aggressively as well.
Yeah, and there's still Alex Strauza in the deck, so there are Battle Cry effects that Dream can synergize with.
That is true, and he can just use to heal up a minion as well. If something like the Belcher goes down to 1 HP, he could consider dreaming it and playing it again.
Sure.
But Coreia recognizes that there's 3 minions in play. There's a good opportunity to get some value from the brawl. Ooh, the boom
Big
button
Game
does not
Hunter.
go to kill the Big Game Hunter. That's kind of what it always seems to do.
He survived. And you know what? I mean,
Still
Trump's
game
kind
to
of
hunt.
okay with that,
Yeah.
too. Because that's the most powerful minion power-wise onto the board. Sylvanas is a pretty big minion as well. Trump has to realize that he might want to start getting aggressive here.
I mean, he has to. He has 3 cards left in his deck.
3 cards left in his deck. He knows one of them is Alex Strauza, one of them is Brawl, and the last one...
I almost feel like he had to play a minion there.
It's surprising to me that he chose not
He
to.
only has 5 power on the board, and Coreia is healing for 4 each turn.
Yeah,
The
correct.
time is against him right now. The time is
He
against
definitely
Trump.
needs to deploy more to the board. I'm a little surprised he did not play that Sylvanas, for instance.
I think he just wants his opponent to feel like he has to play a minion on the board first. Maybe Sylvanas is waiting for after the Alex Strauza, so that way he kind of puts pressure on his opponent to remove, and then he plays Sylvanas to challenge a minion on the board. Those are all possibilities as well. Coreia draws a second Death Spite, which kind of prompts him to start hacking away. You definitely need to start using these weapons to effectively control the board. Not to mention that by swinging into Death Spite, you will be challenging another minion like Sylvanas immediately without losing anything on your board.
Yeah, plays his first jet, but takes out the slime.
But Trump probably has a Jessica Trueheart left in his deck. We're trying to think of the last
You're
card.
correct.
It's probably
the last card is
Jessica
Jessica
Trueheart.
Trueheart. So, pretty reasonable minions here.
There's Alex Strauza.
Might as well toss it out? Or do you feel like it's better to use it
After having a board.
after having a board? It's hard to
close
say.
call.
But you don't have many turns. You don't have many options. Here.
true.
Like Trump has 2 cards left in his deck.
Yeah.
The longer he waits, he's just giving Coreia time to draw the rest of his cards in his deck. So at this point, Trump probably needs to try and leverage the fact that he does have. Oh, that brawl not great here.
Yeah, on average it removes, 2 power on the board, kind of. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you do want to be able to save the brawl if you really do need it.
In this matchup, it can be tricky to get much value out of the brawl.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Shield Maiden comes out here. And that's going to be Trump's problem to deal with. And Sylvanas, unfortunately, just trades 1-for-1 evenly, so there's no value in that card.
And there's Trump's brawl, which is again not going to really do very much. He does have the Jessica Trueheart, which I believe is the last card in his deck here.
Are you kidding me? That's the best removal. We have Armor Smith with the Brawl.
Oh.
Actually, on a serious note, he actually has Acolyte with the Brawl, and that could be a way that Acolyte actually does something.
But if Acolyte lives, then his opponent is back.
If Acolyte lives, he's one
deeper into
closer to fatigue. But if Acolyte lives, he kills the Shield Maiden.
It's true. It is true.
So it's one of those things where maybe it's not so bad. I don't know. Of course, there's Armor Smith, Acolyte, and Brawl, so it increases your chances of removing something on board.
Let's consider the Chrome here and the Dream. But I don't know, it doesn't feel that good. All of the options seem a little bit weak.
I mean, Trump's in a lot of trouble here. He's behind on basically every axis of this game except for cards in hand. But
Right.
2 of the cards in his hand are Acolyte of Pain and Armor Smith, which are extremely low impact.
Yeah, and just a card being his last card in his deck also means that he hasn't been able to get the benefit of armoring up
Right.
a lot. I mean, Coreia's still been gaining a lot of life, so if this comes down to a fatigue, waiting match, it realistically could be that just that Coreia drew just had more life, more time.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. Aggressive move onto the board. Gromish Hellscream slams down, and there's no way to activate Execute without Coreia swinging into the Death Bite and executing itself, which was inevitably going to happen anyway. So Trump says, you know what? I'm just going to go for it.
And here, Coreia picks up a Acolyte of Pain. Not really particularly relevant here.
Unless he wants to brawl with it and he's a gambling man.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I'm just saying, when do you get a better chance to use brawl?
Never.
I'm also saying, Coreia is also one of these guys who's a little brave.
But it's like, if he loses the brawl, he can no longer remove the Grom,
Right.
and that's a huge issue. So
That's true.
I would expect to see just the Death Spite and the Execute.
I think the Death Spite and executes the cool play. Or is it the good play? I think the cool play is the brawl.
That requires a lot of confidence.
Unless he wants to Grom hit his opponent's Grom, because he did use both executes and then execute his opponent's Grom. Then you position yourself that Grom actually can be aggressive on the board already.
It looks so silly if you go for the Acolyte Brawl
The funny
and
thing,
then
like
Grom.
Coreia actually recognizes he's just gaining 4 a turn. He doesn't need to do anything to remove this Grom. If the game state doesn't change, he wins.
That
is
Because
really
Trump is
clever.
getting fatigued. He can just sit here and armor up and let Grom attack him, and he wins.
I gotta be honest, I'm not sure if this hand from Trump is going to
I
be
don't-
enough to deal all
No,
of that.
I don't think
Sylvanas
Trump
is the
can win
last
from this
hope.
position. I don't think he can.
Well, Coreia is on his
Oh.
second to last card himself. I mean, Big Game Hunter is useful to kill off the Grom again, but outside that Grom, there's literally no other targets for Big Game Hunter. It's still not clearly decided yet.
Yeah, I thought that Coreia actually had a significantly higher number of
Right.
cards left when.
Oh, here we go. The
right,
brawl,
well.
the dream. I mean,
wins in a
kind of
fight.
either way, it works.
It's actually okay, no matter what here.
Oh, man!
Oh,
That
dear.
is so big, and that could have single-handedly decided the Acolyte Brawl. You
Wow.
doubted me, Kibler, but it ended up being the MVP play.
Yeah, and now Trump he has Armor Smith, Sylvanas, very little actually left. Is he gonna go for his own brawl?
I mean, at this stage, what do you do? Trump has to ride the Sylvanas all the way home, but it's okay because Coreia has removal, and he's got his own threat on himself. And any points of damage is just really beneficial considering that Trump is ahead on the fatigue draw, which means he's going to take additional damage, and Trump also has no more threats. So all he has to do is play the slow game, and he's going to win this
Yep.
match and advance to the next round of the groups.
This is an elimination match. The player who loses this game goes home, and the player who wins can still contend for the title of America's champion. It looks like Coreia may very well have it.
I mean, he should have it based off of what we're looking at the hands. There are rooms for missteps. But at the same time, Coreia has such a large life lead that I find that extremely unlikely. But barring any kind of catastrophe of nerves where he plays a Big Game Hunter and gives it to his opponent and he's doing extra damage. And
I mean,
misses.
we saw just last week at the European Championship, a player made a misstep in a very important spot, and Coreia, though, he's taking his time, clears the Sylvanas, and now Trump just does not have the damage to break through that tank up.
Yeah, it's completely impossible for Trump at this stage. He only has that one Armor Smith on the board. There's another minion in his hand, but the minion is Acolyte of Pain. It would just cause him to take more damage than the Acolyte would deal if he was to play it.
Now, one thing too is Trump's had this dream for a long time, but he's had no way to use it, and so Trump has to. He's trying to find a way to win with Armor Smith, Acolyte of Pain, Brawl, and a Dream, and that's almost impossible statistically
that
speaking.
dream may be dead.
Yeah,
That
that dream
may be
is
dead.
pretty much dead. And with this, Trump's just trying to figure out, is there any possible way? Maybe I force him to swing with a Death Bite and Acolyte rides all the way home if I can brawl, but it's very unlikely considering that Grom and Hellscream still sits in the hand of Coreia.
Well,
No one said it was pretty, but we kind of got there. Control Warrior versus Control Warrior is kind of like at the end of some of those fighting games where both players have bloody portraits on their faces and said, today you have not gotten the best of me. But Coreia, he's definitely weathered the storm, and this was a very tough matchup. But Trump looks like he is out of answers. He's gonna have to brawl because this is too much board presence,
Which
even
is
just with the
really
Big Game
strange to say.
Hunter. Right.
Oh no, there's now a 4-2. Got a brawl.
if this was a ladder game, I'm sure that Trump would have already conceded, but there's so much on the line.
He's just hoping somehow everything works
And
out.
not even his own Armor Smith. He's been betrayed by his own Armor Smith.
Armor Smith does
that's
always
gonna be
win
it.
brawl, but there's another Armor Smith in play to win the
True.
brawl.
So that's what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force.
Yeah, and Trump recognizing, sadly, that it is, in fact, the dream that is dead.
That's right. That does it. So Coreia will end this game. Trump has no answer as the Brazilian moves on to the next round.
There it is, the concession. And Coreia said he wanted to prove